It is something of a humiliation, nonetheless, to have Ukrainian forces actually invade Russia for the first time since the Second World War.
Ukraine's push into Russia was thought to be an attempt to draw forces away from the fighting in the Donbass. It doesn't seem to be working. Catherine Philp, Times World Affairs editor, has been in Pokrovsk, a vital crossroads at the risk of Russian capture. She's written a piece in the Times today and joins us now. I'm delighted to say good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Stig.
Tell us what's going on in this city then, Pokrovsk.
Yes, I'm back from Pokrovsk now. I'm back in London. Pokrovsk is the town in Ukraine that is most at risk of falling to Russian troops right now. One of the purposes of the Kursk incursion was in the hope of drawing Russian forces away from there, and it hasn't worked. It seems that that is the Kremlin's priority. It's a town in the Donbass, which is the region of Ukraine that Russia, excuse me, is most focused on, having failed to take Kyiv after invading in 2022. So the Russian advance there has, if anything, sped up since Ukrainian forces went into Kursk, and they're now 5 miles away from the city.
So this is a sign actually of Putin's confidence, isn't it? That a lot of people said he's vulnerable now because by allowing Ukrainian incursion onto Russian territory, he looks weak. He'll have to move people from the Donbass. But what this perhaps shows is A, how big a priority taking the Donbass is, but also presumably how confident he is that the look of a Ukrainian incursion isn't enough to unsettle him.
Apparently so. I mean, it is something of a humiliation, nonetheless, to have Ukrainian forces actually invade Russia for the first time since the Second World War. But having failed to scramble immediately to stop it, it seems that he is willing to wait it out, to take his time for the other prize, for the priority of taking the Donbass. And should he take Pokrovsk, it's a town that sits. It's a hub of transport in the Donbass. It was a place where people who were fleeing the Donbass when the Russians originally invaded in 2022. It was a place from which they evacuated. So it's a railway hub and terminus from which people would go to the rest of Ukraine. And so if it is taken, it really will create problems not only in that area for Ukraine, but for the entire front line, because it's where all the roads and all the railways go to other parts of the front line. It will make it very difficult to resupply Ukrainian troops along that entire contact point with Russian forces.
So is this a crisis to a certain extent then? Because, as you say, could this potentially fall in days?
Potentially it could. The speed at which the Russians are going is pretty alarming. I mean, what I found there was that the Ukrainian forces who are trying to hold off the Russians were very, very critical of their leadership and of the commands that they'd been given. I spoke to a commander with the Azov brigade, who I know quite well, who was showing me on a map the projection of this sort of Russian vanguard that's coming out from Russian occupied territory, and saying, why are we not cutting this off from behind? We should be severing this sort of tentacle that's coming out towards Pokrovsk. And on the map, it looks, what he was saying appeared quite logical to me. So he's very frustrated that that order has not been given, that they haven't been asked to do that maneuver. Instead, that they are trying to tackle the Russian forces head on, and it's proving too difficult for them.
Do you think it's a question of the PR value of the incursion being seen as more important than the strategic decision making around the military? The PR value is seen as so important. That's where the attention has gone by the Ukrainians.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. The impact of, the political impact of having invaded Russia, the sign that gives that that Ukraine can still launch a surprise attack like that, has, is inevitably sort of the larger point in that incursion. It's what's been valuable about it. It's changed the narrative. It's given a different story for Ukraine to talk about and point to. But the fact is that whilst that is going on, and now Ukrainian forces, even within Kursk, are running into resistance. Finally, now that Moscow has been able to respond properly and militarily to that. but it has not changed things on the ground for them in the theatre that really matters, which is the Donbass.
And do you think that the fall of Pokrovsk would be a PR blow worse than more important than the PR success of the original incursion?
No, yes. I mean, it is much more militarily significant. There may be questions asked, for example, as to why the assets that the West have sent to Ukraine were sent to Kursk and not to protect Pokrovsk.
Catherine, always fascinating to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us.